Nothing creates a controversy quite like a conversation about creation. And the world of professional wrestling is no different, especially when it comes to wrestling moves. And that's the topic of this episode, because today, Dave knows 5 Move Creation Controversies. So just to be clear, this list is not about clarifying any of these controversies. It's just about laying out information and letting you decide for yourself. And also, there are many reasons why a move's creation becomes cloudy. First off, as I have mentioned previously, wrestling is an industry loaded with lots of con artists. So it's kind of hard to take anything you hear seriously. But sometimes it's not even anything as deliberate as all that. Have you ever noticed that sometimes there are 2 movies that come out at about the same time that seem to be about almost the same exact thing? Well, a lot of times this happens for the same reasons that if you look at a lot of famous inventions out there, you'll find that there are other teams of people completely independently who are about to make the same exact breakthrough and innovations as the people we credit as the original creators. They were just beaten to the punch. It's the same thing with jokes and song lyrics or even fictional characters. There are a lot of great ideas that people come up with all on their own, completely unaware that someone, somewhere, some other time ago actually already came up with. So it just kind of happens sometimes. But now that that's said, let's get into the list. Let's start this list off with a fun one. The move has become synonymous with big men such as The Big Show and Kane. But who was the first to chokeslam? Well, to all you fanboys out there, I hate to break it to you, it wasn't The Undertaker. That's right, I wish it was too. But as some sources such as Tommy Dreamer say, the first person to ever come up with the chokeslam was the creative team of Paul Heyman and 911. That's right, just like a comic book writer and a comic book artist, Paul Heyman and 911 collaborated together to create the awesome chokeslam to devastate the members of the ECW roster. However, there is another contender to claim credit for the creation. And the other possible creator is Abraham Lincoln. I'm serious, it's not like that vampire hunter thing, no, it's not. Just like the widely accepted story of how Thomas Jefferson created macaroni and cheese, the Abraham Lincoln chokeslam story is a little bit on the sketchy side to a small degree. Now, for the most part, Abraham Lincoln is widely credited as the move's creator. However, the only reason I am a little bit skeptical is because I've heard and read the story in a multitude of different ways, with details slightly changing. Now sure, over the course of time, maybe these details just got muddled up a bit, but that doesn't mean the story never happened. And I'm not saying that it didn't. I'm just saying there's a little room for doubt. Now what we do know is that before Abraham Lincoln took the White House, he was an avid wrestler. Now the overall gist of all the stories I've heard goes a little something like this. Abraham Lincoln was in a wrestling match, and he was getting the better of his opponent. His opponent didn't care for this and decided to take a cheap shot at old Abe. Honest Abe didn't care for this. And in a fit of rage and frustration, he just grabbed him by the throat, didn't know what to do, and just picked him up and slammed him down to the ground. And thus, the chokeslam was born. Now this origin is widely accepted because it has been documented. Now I realize the conflict with these origins is the fact that one has to do with real wrestling and the other one has to do with professional wrestling. So it seems that ECW still gets a right to claim the chokeslam as their very own, being the first ones to do it in a professional wrestling context. And maybe Paul E. Dangerously and 911 came up with this all on their own with no prior knowledge to the Lincoln story at all. But then again, maybe they did know about it after all. Next on the list is the crippler crossface. Now this goes into a gray area whether or not you count this as the same exact move, and if you do, that's exactly where the controversy is. After all, both moves are very similar, and the point of impact is exactly the same. It's the secondary factor of where you put your legs that is the only difference between the two. So what exactly am I talking about? Well, when you look at the crippler crossface as done by Chris Benoit, and you look at the Yes Lock from Daniel Bryan, you'll notice that they are very similar moves. The only real difference here is where you put your legs. And a lot of you out there are gonna say, yes, the Yes Lock is most certainly a ripoff of the crippler crossface. However, there's one small detail you might have to consider. Now, some of you may remember that before it was called the Yes Lock, Daniel Bryan actually referred to this move as the LaBelle Lock. Now, some people think this has to do with, whichever Bella he's married to. I can't tell them apart. But actually, the move is named after Ivan Jean LaBelle, the creator of the LaBelle Lock. Jean LaBelle was a highly decorated martial artist, instructor, and, yes, professional wrestler. So while some people think Daniel Bryan ripped off Chris Benoit, other people realize that Chris Benoit might have ripped off Jean LaBelle. And the question is, are they even the same move in the first place? Next up, the DDT. Jake Roberts. Open and shut case, right? I mean, even the Snake himself has claimed to be the creator of the move, so where is the controversy? Well, the question comes into play with a wrestler named Black Gordman, who, by the way, through marriage, is Alberto Del Rio's uncle. Fun fact. Now, Gordon was using a move he called the Diamond Twist, where he grabbed an opponent by his head and dropped them straight onto the mat. Now, allegedly, the first time he did this was a complete accident and he didn't do it on purpose. But he was doing this in the 1970s, where Jake doesn't claim to have created the move until the 1980s, on the other hand. Now, sure, Jake could have just come up with this all on his own, and some people would even argue that the Diamond Twist and the DDT are not the same move either, that there is a little bit of a difference in the execution. But either way, I'm just glad that the move exists. Next up, the Tombstone. Yeah, Undertaker fans, you're taking a beating on this list, aren't you? Because yet again, this move was not created by the Phenom. And no, it wasn't created by Just Incredible either. Now, one of the possible creators for the move is the legendary Andre the Giant, and there is evidence to show that he did the move before the Undertaker ever did. However, there is another name thrown into the ring on this one, and that name is Karl Gotch. Now, Karl Gotch was known as a great innovator to a whole series of moves, and the pile driver was most certainly one of them. And one of his favorite pile driver variations was his cradle pile driver. And some sources say that from time to time he would actually do a variation of that variation, and that move is what we would come to know today as the Tombstone pile driver. However, there is no photographic evidence of him doing this, especially since most of Karl Gotch's matches were never televised. So we don't really know if this is true or not. So as much as we owe Karl Gotch for all of his creativity and innovation, we're still not 100% sure if it was him or Andre. And topping the list, the Sharpshooter. There are not many moves that have as confusing a history as the Sharpshooter. I mean, first off, no one seems to agree whether it's called the Sharpshooter or the Scorpion Deathlock, or if the Scorpion Deathlock and the Sharpshooter are even the same hold in the first place. And when it comes to who actually created the move, well, a lot of credit goes to a lot of different people. Now, there are some who say the creator of the Boston Crab is the person who actually created the Sharpshooter, even though we don't really even know who that guy is in the first place, but, you know, that's a different thing. Now, other people want to give the credit to Dory Funk Jr., who say that his Texas Cloverleaf and other variations on leg holds are the reasons why the Sharpshooter was born at all. But going even further, there are interviews out there that state that the wrestler Conan is the one who actually taught the move and is the reason why we know the move so well today. And even with all that, there's still evidence to suggest that the real creator of the move is Riki Choshu. Choshu was using a move called the Sasori Gatame, which was known as the Scorpion Hold. So I guess it stands to reason that maybe Choshu was the one who taught Sting and Conan was the one who taught Brett? Nah, forget all that. Excuse me, it's time to have a mark out moment. Everyone knows the real creator of the move is the legendary Stu Hart. He was a shoot wrestler and he created the Sharpshooter and passed it down to his sons. That's how the move was born. Everyone knows that. It's a fact. And I don't care what you show me, who tells me what, it doesn't matter, because the bottom line damn well fact is Stu Hart created the mother. But there's my list. Now, what did you think? What are some other move creation controversies that you would like me to cover in future episodes? Let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Dave knows.